My name is Cassidy. I'm from the United States, and I went to university in Washington, D.C., and I've mostly lived in cities my whole life, and I never traveled at all before I came to Colombia. So this is like my first exposure to a different culture, to a country that is not mostly English speaking. And my pronouns are they, she. So I identify as non-binary. I was raised in the New York City suburbs, so mostly white neighborhoods, middle class. And it's actually interesting. Being here, I never realized how much I love the quiet, the stillness of not hearing cars on the street or people selling fruit in the street, for example, which I love about being here. But I've really come to realize that I like quietness because I grew up in a place where it was very quiet. And I had always said as a child into adolescence that I wanted to learn Spanish, and that was a very important goal for my life. I kind of didn't know why. It just was something that felt really important to me to be able to communicate with, the majority of people living in the United States and so many people around the world who only speak Spanish. And I came to Colombia, obviously, kind of as a mistake. But one of the things that felt so right about being here was to be immersed in the culture, to learn Spanish. So I kind of have accidentally crossed that goal off of my bucket list by living here, and I've made my younger self really proud by learning Spanish. And from the time that I was very little, I've always known and expressed my queerness. However, I still had this idea of being a queer little girl, we'll say, a queer teenage girl, and feeling like I had to present hyper feminine despite how I felt comfortable. For example, since I can remember, I always wanted to have short hair. And I would say when I was 5 or 6 that I was so jealous of the boys in my class because they had short hair. So I always wanted to present more masculine than a typical, conventional woman. But I never knew exactly what that meant. And coming to Colombia actually has been a huge revelation in that process for me. I've gone through lots of different style changes throughout my life, but it wasn't until coming to Colombia and being here and presenting more masculine first out of safety reasons. The way that this culture is structured is very patriarchal, and it manifests in feeling unsafe in the street, for example, based off of showing more skin. And as people who aren't necessarily from here, we definitely stand out in another way. And as a way to make myself feel safer, to protect myself, I started dressing more and more masculine, feeling really good about it, like it was finally something I wanted to do. It was the push that I needed, but also doing it out of safety, wanting to be more invisible than visible. I shaved my head in Colombia during the pandemic for the first time, which was incredible. Everyone has to shave their head at least once in their life. It's really liberating. And so being here and kind of being faced with this option, like I can continue to present very feminine the way I always have, or I can try something new and see how that feels in society. It finally gave me the space to explore that identity. of not presenting as a stereotypical feminine person. And so having those experiences that I've had as a child, as a teenager, and now being in this position where it feels like something that I'm doing that started out for a different reason, it's kind of evened itself out it's like a pendulum, you know? You start very feminine, the way that you're told you have to be, and then you go really hard to the other side. And now I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, somewhere where I want to be, not because of safety, not because of societal pressure, but because it's where I've found the presentation that I want to have. So my parents are really supportive. I mean, they still have very traditional, conditioned ideas about how your life is supposed to look, the type of path you're supposed to follow. But honestly, my parents, I'm really, really grateful. When I told my parents that I was moving here with my best friend, my parents were like, you have to do this. This is once in a lifetime, opportunity. So they have the same adventurous spirit. I think it's just a generational difference. But they are very supportive, and they just think I'm kind of I'm following my own path. So right now I'm in grad school. I'm in grad school in a university in the States, and because of the pandemic, my program has been virtual up until this point. But finally, we're starting to go back in person again next semester, which I'm really excited about. So I'm studying. It's a dual master's program. It's a master's of social work and a master's of education, specifically sex education. So I'm really interested in doing a lot of things with this degrees. I'm interested in being a therapist, relationship trauma therapist. I'm interested in teaching sex education in public schools. I'm interested in running community programs for older adults about sexuality and relationships. There's lots I want to do with it. And because of the combination of the degrees, there's a lot of different ways to work with it. I'm also really interested in writing legislation in the United States for a sex education curriculum, because there's no standardized sex education curriculum. So there's a lot. There's a lot to be done. And with these degrees, I'm kind of in the process of figuring out exactly which path I'll be taking.